Hi, welcome to Mellow Movie Reviews, where we mellowly review movies. My name is Bri,
And my name is Catie.
and this week we watched Troy 2004.
2004?
Yeah,
God, I'm 1,000 years old. Wow,
yeah,
that really did come out when we were in fifth grade then.
yeah. Troy 2004, the director's cut, which was 3 hours and 16 minutes long.
It was a mistake, and we'll explain why.
Catie, it was a mistake, but I got a lot more notes out of it.
It was only 30 minutes of extra content, but it felt like it was like several hours worth.
Yeah, I mean, we'll Catie, we will get into this.
Like, I watched the extended edition of The Lord of the Rings, like, all the time. Like, I haven't watched the theatrical cut in years, and this felt somehow longer.
Yeah, I don't know. It was long.
Okay.
It was a long one. And so this movie was directed by actually Catie. I have a question.
Yeah,
How are you doing?
I am good. How are you?
I'm okay.
How's quarantine life going?
It's going okay. Trying to look on the bright side and just stay safe and keep in contact with friends and family.
Yes, very important. Very important.
But this movie really took my mind off things.
Yeah, yep, it did. It did for sure.
So this movie, Troy, was directed by Wolfgang Peterson, and it is starring Brad Pitt.
So many people.
Sorry?
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but there's so many famous people in this movie that I didn't know that were in this movie.
Yeah, so first we have Brad Pitt as Achilles, Orlando Bloom as Paris, Eric Bana as Hector, Sean Bean as Odysseus. Catie, this is when I was like, rewind. I forgot. I didn't even know Sean Bean was in this movie.
Same. As soon as I heard him doing that voiceover, I was like, Sean Bean is in this movie? That can't be him. And then it cut to him, and I was like, fuck!
And then Sean Bean playing Odysseus.
He doesn't die. He can't die in that role. His character has plot armor.
I loved that he was in this, and it was great because, as a teenager, of course, I was just ogling at Orlando Bloom and Brad Pitt. But as an adult, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's Sean Bean. He's just like such a good actor, and he seems very wholesome.
I really enjoyed his Odysseus. Like, I felt like his portrayal was like the most true to form of what I expect of an Odysseus character.
Yes, and it's funny because in Percy Jackson, the Lightning Thief, he played Zeus.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Okay, let me finish the cast list.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have Sean Bean as Odysseus, Brian Cox as King Agamemnon. We have Brendan Gleeson as Menelaus. We have Diane Kruger as Helena, Peter O'Toole as Priam, and Rose Byrne as Briseis. Stefan Burrows as Andromache, and Garrett Hedlund as Patroclus. So, Catie, since this movie is so long, I really feel like the basic rundown isn't necessary, and I think we should start with just likes and then really dive into the dislikes.
Okay. Fair enough. I'm looking to see the runtime. Oh, it's 3 hours and 16 minutes.
Yeah, this movie, it was long. Do you want to start? Oh, Catie, first. Sorry, did you like this movie?
Did I like this movie? I don't know if I liked this movie. I don't feel like I liked or disliked this movie. I was just like, I'm experiencing this. It's happening to me. You know?
Yeah, I totally feel that.
I feel pretty neutral about it.
I think for me, So when I first saw this movie, I loved it. This is the first. Okay, you know when people say that they like The Phantom Menace?
Who actually likes that movie?
The people who like that movie are usually our age and saw it when they were children. And it was the first Star Wars movie they've ever seen. So even though it gets a bad rep, they hold it dear to their heart. So they rank it higher than they would have when doing a Star Wars ranking.
I guess that's a fair shout. And I feel like that applies to this situation. Like,
Yeah.
I loved this movie when I was a kid, but now I'm just like, is this a good movie?
Yes, that's like exactly how I feel. This movie is not good, but I'm glad I bought it because it is a movie that I watched a lot in high school and it just kind of brought me back. If I didn't have a connection to this movie at all, I'd probably give it like a 1.5 out of 5 stars. But since I've watched this movie multiple times when I was younger, I'm giving it I gave it a 2.5 on Letterboxd.
I would definitely agree with that. I think this movie has what I call Friends syndrome. I've never seen Friends before, and I never want to. And I genuinely think it's because I never watched it when I was a kid, and I've seen stuff about it on the internet, and it just looks stupid, and I know I'm not gonna like it. Like, I think there's just some media that, like, the only way it's good is when there's nostalgia attached to it.
I agree with that. Ooh, Catie, we're just dishing out the points. So, what I liked about the movie, besides having nostalgia connected to it, I thought the casting was excellent. I loved Eric Bana's portrayal as Hector.
I agree.
I also loved Peter O'Toole as Priam.
Mm.
I think Priam, he had the best character treatment out of all the characters, I think.
I mean, it's Peter O'Toole. What could we expect of him? Like, he's a very high caliber actor.
Yeah, he was acting his heart out, and I did tear up when he goes to ask for his son's body.
I was literally just about to bring up that scene because of how well acted that scene is. Honestly, between the two of them, like, I think Brad Pitt does really well in that scene. He carries his weight.
Yeah, I think that is like the best scene in the movie, and that is why I think it kind of works a little bit, not really. There's a lot of this scene could have been so great if this movie as a whole was just better. Another thing I liked is I think when I was younger, I was very intimidated by these types of films, like period piece films that took place.
Oh, this was my genre when I was a kid. Still, even I'm a period piece nerd.
So I think I was kind of intimidated by the genre. And this was the first movie I kind of like delve into that had to do with like Greek mythology. And what I liked about it is that I could understand like everything that was going on. So I think that I want to give this movie props to being very clear, but at the same time, it's so clear that it gets so repetitive and the same points are made over and over again. And like, I think when I was younger, I mistook that for, oh my God, I understand the story. This is a great movie. But now I'm just like, why are they, we know the story. Like, just show it to us.
Yeah. I mean, like, there's like a lot missing from this as far as like mythology wise. But I mean, like, it like the Iliad is a very dry poem. And this does a good job of presenting that plot line, at least mostly the human plot line, like pretty well. Most of it's there. The biggest gaping gap for me was that Cassandra was left out of this because I thought she could have been a really interesting character.
Can you remind me who Cassandra is?
So Cassandra is Paris and Hector's sister, and she can see the future, which I guess doesn't really fit in with the realistic tone of this movie, but also they included Achilles' mom, who is, I can't remember what her character, she's like a goddess, basically.
She's a sea witch.
Yes, but Cassandra, like when they go to pull the horse in, she's like, no, don't do it. And like the entire night while like everyone's partying, she's like, no, the horse is going to kill us. Like everyone like put it back outside, set it on fire. And everyone's like, oh, Cassandra. Oh yeah, she got a curse so that every time she has a prophecy, no one believes her. So that's why everyone's like, shut up, Cassandra. And then they all die.
So that was one of my complaints. Like, it was very realistic, except for that one scene with Achilles' mom. And I was kind of like, go big or go home. Like, have fantasy or don't have it at all. Because the fact that that was like a slither of fantasy. And then the rest, it wasn't really mentioned. Like, there was nothing at all.
It also, I feel like, wasn't made super clear that his mom was a dryad. But, like, I agree. I think if you're gonna put that in, like, also, how interesting would it have been if they had Apollo, considering he's the patron god of Troy, and, like, Achilles basically middle fingered him by cutting off his head at the temple. There's actually a bunch of plot lines that involve the gods and goddesses, like, taking sides. And one of the reasons they bring the horse into the city is that Poseidon, like, makes a sea monster steal a bunch of people off the shore and, like, kill them. And they're all like, oh, we should bring this inside. Clearly Poseidon's angry with us.
Yeah, and Apollo is, like, a guide that helps Paris kill Achilles in the end.
Yeah, and Athena helps Odysseus come up with the idea for the horse.
So it would have been, I agree, I think it would have been beneficial to have godlike figures if they were going to include Achilles' mom. Was she wearing a sparkly blue dress?
She was for sure wearing, like, a bluey dress. I feel like they maybe put, like, a special, like, halo kind of situation in light around her to kind of be like, ooh, this is supernatural. She definitely looked different than him. Like, they were for sure trying to distinguish the fact that she was supernatural.
Yeah, and from another world.
I actually lied. My biggest like, story inaccuracy that they left out is the whole deal about Achilles' heel. Like, they keep saying he's invulnerable and, like, he can't be killed, and it's because his mom dipped him into the river Styx. And then they have that scene where Paris shoots him in the ankle, and they've never explained why that's what kills him in the end.
Yeah, that's a big pooper.
Because also, like, if I knew that's how, like, if I didn't know the story and I saw that, I'd be like, why is he worried? He got shot in the foot.
Yeah, because that looked really agonizingly painful. Is that a word?
I think so.
Okay, let's just roll with it. I figured while watching this, I was like, Katie's gonna have so many gripes with how they're telling this story.
You were correct about that.
Okay, did they mention Achilles' prophecy at all?
Nope.
No.
Wait, yes, they did, because they had that scene where they were like, if you stay here, you're going to have a happy life, but no one's going to remember your name. If you go there, people will remember your name, but you'll never come back.
I feel like that should have been a bigger deal.
I agree. Also, I feel like that was a director's cut added scene. I don't feel like I remember that being in the actual movie.
Because that's annoying, because that's literally the main part of Troy. Like, the main part. One of the main plot lines.
For him being, like, basically the main character of this movie, they did his storyline so dirty.
Okay, I was very confused because Brad Pitt is supposed to be the star. He's hardly in this movie.
Well, yeah, because almost immediately when they get to Troy, they have that whole business with Briseis, and then he refuses to fight. And then it takes like 5 or 10 scenes before they get to Patroclus stealing his armor.
So, yeah, they should have sprinkled... I feel like the main protagonist in this film was supposed to be Achilles, but for some reason they made it Hector, which was fine, because I liked Eric Bana as Hector, but it was weird that at the end we were supposed to be rooting for Achilles for the last 30 minutes when he was portrayed as such a mean asshole. Like, I know he's arrogant, but at least he had at least he had some redeeming qualities. I remember, maybe. I don't.
He's into himself, and he like doesn't give a shit.
I like totally get that. They played that fine, but I wish there was more of him being the person he was at the end earlier on. I don't know. I feel like his switch after talking to Priam was very fast.
I agree. And I feel like they made a switch, like, at some point in the movie where Achilles stopped being the main character. And you're right, it shifted to Hector. But then at the end, they wanted you to shift back to Achilles, and it just didn't work.
Yeah, they needed to figure out who their main protagonist was. And I think the main problem with this movie is that the story is there. Like, I love the story of Troy.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Who
it
doesn't?
is. I don't know. It's a great story. It's simple. Well, not simple. It's straightforward. It's easy to like get into. And I think that this movie would have worked if it was told from a different person's perspective. Like the book I read, that you read as well, Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, was told in Patroclus's voice. And it was an interesting take on the fall of Troy. And I really enjoyed it, even though I knew it was going to happen. I feel like this movie would have worked if they really honed in on Achilles, really honed in on Hector, honed in on any of like the family members or maybe someone in the army. You know, they have to tell it in a unique perspective, because this was just a storybook to me. This really, really reminded me of, I was like watching a play on TV.
I feel like they had too many minor storylines going on. And that is the issue with turning this poem into a movie, is that there are several plot lines going on all at once. So you do kind of have to pick and choose which ones you want to include. I felt like they made scenes with Agamemnon like really big when they didn't really need to, and it was at the expense of time that they could have given to either Achilles or Hector to develop that character.
I know I've mentioned this, but I really don't think Brad Pitt had that much screen time in Troy. Maybe it's because of the director's cut had something to do with it. But
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
Well, because I think they only added scenes. They wouldn't have taken anything out.
That's true, but like since they added scenes, maybe like the duration of us seeing Achilles was longer. So we thought
I see.
So we thought we didn't see him as much. So I feel that with Paris and Helen, there was a lot of attention on them. And when I was younger, I was like, cute romance, yay! But then it was just really like annoying. Like I didn't want to root for them. I like the fact that Helen left her mean husband, but I think like the movie spent a little too much time on their story, and their story is such a simple one that we don't need that much time on their romance.
I just also felt like they made that story like pretty sexual, which is like fine. It really kind of, I felt like, shallowed the relationship between them, because like when they're at Sparta and they like are gonna leave with each other, it's literally the first time we see the two of them interact together. And I'm like, could you at least have given us a scene where they're having like an intimate conversation or something to develop this relationship? Like literally the scene where they declare like love for each other as they're about to have sex, which again, fine. Like do that, do what you want to do. But like, it just didn't feel like an authentic relationship to me. I also like really didn't understand Hector's decision on the boat to be like, it's fine, let's keep going.
All like the story beats for me were fine. Does Hector do that in the book? In the Iliad?
Yeah, but I feel like there's a reason. I feel like there's an actual reason why he decides to like keep them.
So like I
Really is
started
somebody
writing
writing
like
so much.
story notes, but then I kind of stopped because I was like, okay, this is already like an established story. But I did write in my notes, like, why is Hector acting so cash? Like,
It's literally, I feel like he's so intense about this alliance. He has like a 30-second conversation with Paris, and then he's like, fine.
wait, there's a scene where Paris is about to fight Agamemnon, and Hector and Paris both dismount their horses at the exact same time. Did you catch that?
No, I did not.
I like did a rewind because I thought that was so funny. I'm like, did they tell them to do that? So, problems I had. The beginning sucked. Like the beginning of like the map of Troy and then like yellow capitalized text. Like why?
I feel like that's such a thing with this kind of movie. They just give you exposition in like a shot of just like text.
And
Like, at least it wasn't moving. Like, God loves Star Wars, but I can't deal with the openings of those movies. My brain can't deal with moving text.
so this whole entire movie reminded me of a 3-part History Channel reenactment of Troy and it could have been that without the sex.
Yeah, if they'd taken the sex out, I would have believed that this was like a straight to DVD thing.
Yep.
Except for the fact that all those famous people are in it.
Yeah, and I feel like that is the only reason this movie is elevated.
I feel like this movie follows the rule of like the higher number of famous people are in the movie, the shittier the movie is.
A lot of the scenes were just drawn out, especially the battle scenes between the Trojans and Agamemnon's army. I was so disinterested in the fight. Also, both of the armies, they looked like they had the same armor. The camera was everywhere. The camera was like, there were so many just straightforward, bland camera movement shots that made this movie so boring. So it literally felt like I was watching a play take place.
There were some like pretty questionable handheld shots as well. Like, I can't remember exactly, but I feel like there was a scene where there was a really deep conversation going in like a banquet hall, and it was a handheld camera shot, and like the entire time the camera was shaking, and I'm like, this is really taking away from this moment.
The battles looked bad. The fight choreography I didn't think was that great. Do you think that was on purpose to show that both of these armies were like inexperienced, or do you think that was just a sloppy thing?
I just think it was sloppy. I feel like the only people whose fight choreography they paid attention to were Hector and Achilles. And like, honestly, I found Achilles' fighting style really showy, and like, I know that's kind of his deal, but like, he was the fucking Tim Tebow of the battlefield.
Okay, that's funny you mentioned Tim Tebow because I literally wrote in my notes, why is this movie turning into Friday Night Lights?
Oh my god.
Okay, so when Achilles refuses to fight, I was like, this is like Achilles is the best player on the football team and refuses to play in the next game.
No, exactly. How extra is his fighting style? Like, when he goes to kill that guy in that opening scene, he literally does like a backflip over him and then just like stabs him in the neck.
Okay, I love that scene.
Yes, I love that. But also, he continues to do that when he's fighting like Hector and like the other rando soldiers during the thing. And I'm like, bro, do you need to show off or do you need to live?
I found that fine. Because, like, I know how Achilles dies, so I know he has that show-offy type fighting style, so I didn't mind that much. I felt like they could have gone a little bit crazier, actually, with Achilles' fighting style, because he's supposed to be, like, the swiftest guy in the world.
I mean, like, they never explained his whole deal with why he can't be killed. So I feel like if you're gonna go that far, like, explain it and then go further. If they had explained that and he did like crazy reckless shit, I'd be all over that. Yeah. But the fact that he didn't and they were basically like, yeah, he's a human, it didn't line up for me. I wasn't a fan.
Achilles definitely needed more lines. He needed more character development because his story is very interesting. I love Hector. I mean, I love Eric Bana as Hector, but Hector is boring.
Yeah, all he does is talk about his wife and, like, honor.
And that's totally fine. Like, I'm totally here for you, Hector. Like, totally chill.
Yeah, but he's boring.
He's boring. He's very boring. What I love about Troy is the argument between the armies. I think it is so interesting that Achilles has this very complicated dynamic with Agamemnon, and they kind of showed it.
That's a relationship I would have loved to see more of, is Agamemnon and Achilles. That's such an interesting dynamic they have between them, and they never really explain how that started. They just, like, initiate the fact that it's there.
And when I was younger, that plot point really intrigued me. Like, why is he refusing to fight for him? And, like, the Briseis plot line, like, they share, like, 2 lines of dialogue with each other, and then she gets taken away from him, and then gets really mad, and I'm like, I wish we had more of a development between Briseis and Achilles, but okay.
First of all, what a disservice to his character to not make him at least bisexual. He and Patroclus are in love. I will not be convinced otherwise. But also, an unnecessary plotline, in my opinion. Like, other than that whole, like, that's why he's sitting out the war, I felt like they were trying to force another romance into this plotline when, like, they already have Helen and Paris, which is where all their romance plotlines should have gone anyway, and they already have that cute thing with Hector and his wife. You don't need any more.
Yeah, for sure. I really like the battle between Paris and Agamemnon. It showed Paris looking really weak.
I agree. I did get, like, a lot of secondhand embarrassment from that.
I mean,
Like,
Menelaus.
I get it. I would probably have done the same thing for sure, but, like, I was so embarrassed for him in that moment.
Yeah, that was crazy. And it was between Paris and Menelaus. Sorry, not Agamemnon.
And we know what you meant. The two are essentially interchangeable, except for Menelaus is a dumbass and Agamemnon at least knows what he's doing.
Yeah, they're just hotheads. Like, calm down. So I think that Paris and Helen have, like, Padme and Anakin vibes.
Explain.
Like, oh, they're so in love, but we don't know why they're in love, but they're in love, and this is why the war is happening, but we don't know why they're in love, but they're very attractive people, so they should be in love. But, like, why are they in love? You just assume that they are, and, you know, it will drive the plot, and you'll care about them till the end of the movie, and they're both gonna survive, and you're gonna be happy for them. Well, actually, Anakin and Padme both did not survive, but I was
no,
like,
I get what you're saying and agree, and also that's kind of what I was saying earlier about how, like, they never show us that relationship. They're just like, they're hot, now she's going to Troy with him.
So, you know, I love my timestamps, Catie.
I was wondering when you were gonna break those out.
And we are an hour and 15 minutes in, and we had gotten 2 scenes of Achilles.
To be fair to the movie, there is quite a lot of exposition to get through, but also they could have done it so much faster.
I think what really would have made this movie work is if they had done it from a different perspective and if it was like 2 hours long. Because I feel like everyone who would see this movie might have a basic understanding of the story of Troy. But like Madeline Miller, she wrote that fantastic book from a different perspective, and it was still extremely interesting. There are so many perspectives you can tell this story from. And for Hollywood to be confused, you have all these great actors, and for them to not hone in on one specific actor and then not make the actors around them hype the actor up. And I don't know, it just wasn't focused enough. And that's what took me away from the story.
Here's what I want to know. I want to know why no one's made a movie of this story from Helen's perspective.
They have.
What?
It's called Helen of Troy. It was made in the 50s, I think.
Oh, okay. That's why I haven't seen it. But I would like a more modern version of that because I feel like that could be really, really interesting.
Also, like, the dialogue, it was just not...
I found the dialogue very lazy. There were maybe, like I enjoyed the dialogue in that scene between Achilles and his mother, and I thought that scene was pretty well delivered. I enjoyed the dialogue during the the scene with Priam and Achilles. But like, other than that, I can't feel like I remember a really memorable moment dialogue. Like, there's no line coming to mind where I was like, wow, yeah, that was a good line.
I think the only line I really liked is when Achilles first talks to Hector and he's like, today is not a day for killing princes.
Mm.
So Patroclus' death is the main motivator for Achilles to kill Hector. And we don't really get any scenes with Achilles and Patroclus.
We get that one scene when Odysseus shows up, but I also found that scene lazy. And like, I did like that the dialogue kind of felt a little flirtatious between the two of them, but that was definitely not intentional.
So I really liked what they did with Patroclus, but I wish there was more of him on screen.
I agree. And like, I think that's part of the reason where like we get that Achilles is devastated when Patroclus dies, but like I don't feel like they gave them enough story to have earned that devastation. Like, again, I feel like that's a thing you would have to go into knowing that Achilles and Patroclus have this very deep relationship. Like, they never developed that. They gave us like 1 or 2 scenes between the two of them.
Yeah, they seem like just kind of bros on the football team.
Exactly. They didn't show the part where the two of them got their ashes mixed together so they could never be parted.
In the end, Odysseus is like, I'm gonna put a horse in the thing. What did you think of the end?
Throughout, the horse was ugly.
Yeah, at first, Katie, I was like, how did they fit the army into the horse? But then I remembered a few of them went in and then they opened the gates.
I also, but like the amount of people coming out of that horse, it did feel a little bit like a clown car. Like, surely all those people could not have fit inside that horse.
Oh, for sure. I felt like maybe 12.
Yeah, like 12 to 15.
Yeah.
And there were easily 30 or 40 people that came out of that horse.
Yeah, there are like a lot of people who came out of that horse. I think this last scene would have been very powerful if we got more of Achilles. I think it would be very powerful if we had Apollo, because this movie makes it look like Paris is a bad fighter, but a good archer. But in reality, Apollo helps him. So we're meant to believe that, Paris, he's not good at sword fighting, but he's really good at the arrows. But in actuality,
do they even establish that? Like, I feel like when he shoots Achilles, that's the first time I see him with a bow and arrow.
Yeah, I don't think they established that he's good with arrows. He may be bad at the sword, but he's still good at the arrow. But no, he had help with the arrow.
Paris is a little bitch, and people need to stop being afraid to show that.
This movie is dear to my heart, but unfortunately, it's not that good. But you know what? I'm gonna watch it again.
I mean, and I own it now.
Yeah, so we both own this movie, so we are gonna watch it forever.
I guess so, because I paid money for it.
Okay, who is your favorite character in this movie?
Odysseus.
Who is your favorite character in The Legend of Troy?
Also Odysseus.
Okay, my favorite character from The Legend of Troy would have to be Achilles.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But my favorite character from the movie was Priam.
Listen, I think Priam definitely gets owed a shout. Peter O'Toole, man, what a guy.
He made me cry on my yoga mat.
That scene where he's at where he gets Hector's body back, that hit different as an adult.
Yeah, that was really hard.
Another thing they never explained was the coins on the eyes.
No. Explain, Katie.
So, in Greek mythology, when you die, your soul goes to the underworld, and you have to pay the ferryman 2 coins, I guess, because you have 2 eyes.
Oh, yeah.
To get across the river Styx to Elysium or the fields of Asphodel or Tartarus, whichever the fates have destined for you.
I feel like this happened in Percy Jackson.
Well, yeah, they explain it in Percy Jackson because they have to take the coins that they got from Medusa.
Do you think this movie suffers from the Percy Jackson situation in terms of like creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah, they could have gone bigger. I thought some of the outfit choices were pretty good.
I did enjoy the costuming because I feel like usually when you see Greek movies, it's always like they're in a toga and the togas are always either white or purple. And like, I don't know if they had the ingredients to make blue, but that didn't bother me. Like, that's not a thing. Like, maybe for a second I was like, could they have made blue? But then I was like, whatever. Brad Pitt's eyes look amazing.
Yeah.
Also, big shout to all those crop tops they had the guys wearing. That was an amazing costuming choice.
That was awesome. Also, everyone's hair was amazing.
I agree.
Agamemnon, Menelaus had the best hairstyles.
Listen, I'm actually going to say Hector had the best hairstyle. That braid and those like silver clippy things in his hair.
I'm going to have to go with Agamemnon. I was really feeling his hairstyle. Yeah, I think that the hair and costuming, I was like pleasantly like surprised.
Yeah, I think the women's costumes were a little bit boring, but I think there were some fun details in them. Like I did enjoy the gold olive branch that Helen was wearing when she enters Troy.
Yes. Oh, yes, so beautiful. She's gorgeous.
I agree, but also I'm like really over seeing super hot blondes being portrayed as Helen. Like I would like to see someone considered the most beautiful woman in the world who looks like really interesting. Like there's so many beautiful people who are not skinny blonde chicks.
That's true.
But also this movie came out in what, 2004? So
Catie, I feel like after talking about this movie, I like it more than I said I did.
It's a good movie to talk about.
Yeah, it's just it feels like a Star Wars prequel movie to me.
I would say that's a correct vibe.
Because I've never experienced watching the prequels as a child. But yeah. So yeah, this was so fun. Catie, do you have anything else you want to say?
Ooh, I do have one more plot gripe.
Ooh, tell.
I'm such a nitpick with Greek mythology because I really like it. Also, I taught this as a unit. This was my first unit I taught to my 10th graders this year. The reason that all of the men go to Troy is because there was a tournament because all the men wanted to marry Helen. And it was like, okay, if you win the tournament, you get to marry Helen. So Agamemnon won, and they all had to make a pact that they would come when called for like a war to protect Helen or something like that, and they wouldn't like fight Agamemnon for her. Also, the reason Paris fell in love with her, that was never explained, was that he gave a golden apple. There was a contest where he had to give a golden apple to the most beautiful goddess, and it was between Athena, Hera, and Aphrodite. And he gave it to Aphrodite because she promised that the most beautiful woman in the world would fall in love with him. That would have helped me at least a little bit with the relationship between Paris and Helen.
Yeah, they could have sprinkled a little bit of
a
little something in there.
I'm gonna say if you're gonna do mythology, go big or go home.
Yeah.
Stick the gods in there. Don't be afraid.
Go big or go home, guys.
Yep.
All right.
Hercules, the Disney movie, is the best Greek mythology movie.
Hercules, the Disney movie?
Yes.
I agree. Okay, Catie. Well, thanks everyone for listening. We are going to review What We Do in the Shadows next.
I'm so excited.
Is it one of your favorite movies?
I don't know if I'd say it's one of my favorite movies, but it's definitely a movie I really enjoy watching.
Okay, this is one of my favorite movies ever made.
Ooh.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.